everyone, today I'll be showing you how to make this side gathered handkerchief gown with a deep back neckline. If this is something you're interested in, keep watching, give this video a thumbs up and let's start. So I have my vertical lines down. I have my shoulder to the bust point, to the underbust, the waist, the hip, and then the full length. So for this front, I'm using a full length of 45 inches. That's what I marked on my paper right here. So what I did for the shoulder area was to mark a neck width of 4 inches. And then I marked my half of my shoulder, came down by 1 inch at the shoulder point, and then got my armhole depth and then the chest line. So on the armhole depth line, I'm coming in by half of an inch at the midpoint, and then at the chest line, I'm going to mark quarter of my round bust measurement and connect it together to get my armhole curve. So this is the armhole curve area right here. Now the next thing we're going to mark is the neck depth. So we come over to this point, come down by 3 inches for the neck depth and connect it. So because we're using a back that is deep, we're going to use a neck width for depth for the front that is a bit high. Okay, now the next thing you want to mark is your dart line. You're going to get your bust span, which is the distance from one nipple to the other. You divide that by 2 because we have 2 sides for the front. You're going to mark that from your bust points down to your hip line, and then you connect it together in a straight line. So now that we have this, at the bust points, come down by 1 inch, and then at the waist, go in and out on both sides by half of an inch, and then go down from the waist by 4 inches and just connect your dart like so. So this is the dart we're using for this. You can make use of any dart of your choice. Now we go on and place our horizontal measurements. So around the chest area, I will just add my stitching allowance of 1.5 inches. Around the waist, I will mark quarter of my round waist, my dart intake, and then the stitching allowance of 1.5 inches. Around the hip, I'm going to do the same, quarter of my round hip, and then a stitching allowance of 1.5 inches and connect those points together. Connecting it together, you're going to take the measurement you have around the hip. You take that down to the full length. So whatever you have around your hip, you repeat that at the full length. Okay. So that means quarter of your round hip plus 1.5 inches, which is our stitching allowance, and just connect them together in a straight line. So this is what we have for the front. Now to create the curve for the gathers, from my center front, I'm going to come in by some inches. So this, from the center front, I'm coming in by 4 inches. I'm going to make a mark there. And then from the waist area, I'll go down by 3 inches and I'll make a mark. Now I'm going to connect from the 3 inches point below the waist to that 4 inches point, which I came in at the center front at the full length. So you're going to connect them in a curve just the way you see me doing. So you can use your straight, your rule to do that, or you can just use your free hand, to create that curve. But make sure you have a nice curve around that area. So after doing this, this is all for the front. We'll just go in to cut out our piece. Now for the front, I'm going to use a side dart. I didn't do that while I was doing this initial drafting, but I'm going to impute that. Okay, so you want to watch so that you see what I'm going to do there. So I'm just cutting this out here. This out now, I'm going to place my side dart. So your side dart is usually gotten from the distance of difference between your front shoulder to waist and your back shoulder to waist. So for me, the front is 16 and then the back is 15. So 16 minus 15 gives me 1. So I used 1 inch and I came down from the bust point by 1 inch by the sides, and I'm going to connect it to nothing. Okay, connected towards the dart line which I have. Now you can simply decide to not use the side dart, okay, but note that if you're placing a side dart, it's either you close it up, okay, you have to cut it open, close it up, or you have to stitch it down. So if you're closing this up, this is what you're going to do. I'm just showing you this because I'm going to stitch mine down. You're just going to cut through it and then you close it back, okay, so that it takes off that excess, so that the back and the front matches perfectly, and then you don't have any zip bulge at the back. Okay, but we're going to open ours for this tutorial. For the sake of this tutorial, we're going to open ours. So this is just to show you that. Okay, so now over to the back, I'm also gone ahead to mark my vertical lines. I have my shoulder point, I have the bust point. Now for the back, I'm using my actual shoulder to waist measurement at the back. Remember I said for the front, mine is 15, is 16. For the back is 15. So I'm using the actual measurement for the shoulder to the waist at the back, which is 15 inches for me. So that means that my length at the back is going to be reduced by 1 inch. In front, I used 45 inches. At the back, I used 44 inches for the length. That's simply what I did for the back. That's the difference between the back and the front. So whatever you do to the front is going to affect the back area, and you need to take note of that. Now for the armhole curve, go ahead and get the midpoint of your armhole depth line, and then mark quarter of your round bust, and then your seam allowance of 1.5 inches, which we're using for this project. Now, after doing this part, what we're going to do is to place the dart also. So I'm just ensuring that this is actually correct, that I'm doing the right things. So we're going to place our dart leg just the way we did in front. Make sure that the same measurement you used in front is what you're using at the back also. So you're going to mark your bust span divided by 2. You mark that from the chest line in the case of the back to the hip line. So after marking that at various points, you're going to connect them together with your rule to give you a straight line, right? So for the front, we connected from the bust point, but from the back, we're connecting from the chest line. So you come down from the chest line by 1 inch, you go in at the waist point by ½ inch on both sides, and you come down from the waist by 4 inches. And then you go ahead and just connect your dart, okay? Connect your dart normally. This is just a normal dart. It has no, it's not, we're going to be stitching this down. We're not going to open up our papers to stitch them together. I hope you understand that. So next we're going in to place the horizontal measurement. So we have that of the bust around the chest area already. You go ahead and place that of your waist, quarter of your round waist, your dart intake, your seam allowance. You do the same thing around the hip, quarter of your round hip, and then your seam allowance of 1.5 inches, and connect them together. So we'll go ahead and extend what we have around the hip to the full length of this piece. So remember to reduce the back length, okay, when doing this, especially if you're using your actual shoulder to waist measurement for the back. Now for the neckline of the back, it's a deep back neckline. You can take this as low as you want. So initially I came up from my chest point by 1 inch, and I just connected that towards the neck width I have there. And after connecting this, I decided to just take this down to the chest line. Okay, so you can take this beyond, go below your bust point. Just totally depends on how deep you want your back to be. So you see me adjusting this and then taking it from my neck width to the bust point like so. This is what I'm going to have right here. So this is what we're going to work with. Now what we're going to do next is to go over to the waist. I'm going in by 0.75 inches. 0.75 inches. I'm trying to snatch in the back so that it gives me a smooth back. I'm going to just take that, connect it to nothing around the top, and then connect it to nothing around the bottom. Now I can add my zipper allowance of 1 inch. So while marking your zipper allowance for the waist area, you're going to mark from that 0.75 inches point where you went in, okay? So this will help our zip to sit smoothly at the back without it folding. And also you want to ensure that you used your actual shoulder to waist measurement for the back. Now you're just going to just connect the rest to the full length of your paper. Now that we have this down, this is just what we're going to have for this. So we come over to the back here. So this is what me explaining for the length that I have. So because of that measurement of using the actual shoulder to waist of the back, your length is going to be reduced by 1 inch, okay? Please make sure to take note of this so that one part is not longer than the other. Now we're going to do the same thing we did in front, come out from the center by 4 inches, and then we come down from the waist by 3 inches and just connect it together. You can actually place your paper for the front, to place it down so that you get a perfect curve. You need both of them to be matching so that they are looking nice and clean. So now that we have our patterns down, we just go in and cut everything out. So we have everything we need to go ahead to make this dress perfectly. So ensure that you follow through with the steps that I mentioned, and ensure that you take note of the little things I said so that your dress comes out looking nice. So this is what we have for the pattern. We have the front and back. So placing them together like so, you can see that I taped down the side that I taped it down, but I will open this up later on. So placing them together, you can see that they are matching. We have that lines matching. That is how it should be. And also for the side pieces where we're going to get our gathers from, they are also matching perfectly. This is what you should have for yours also. Okay. So I'll go ahead and cut this out on my fabric and we're going to start stitching down. So this is what I have on my fabric. I added half of an inch only at the part where I'm going to attach my gathers to. I added half of an inch to the shoulders and also to the necklines for both the front and the back. So we already have our side seam allowance. I didn't add that. And I went ahead to cut facings for the back and the front. Now I've opened up my dart for the side piece. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. So placing this now on the back, you can see that it is longer. So this means that we must stitch down the side dart in order to have both pieces matching by the sides. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So you want to cut off the paper there. I want to cut off the paper, then I will use that, the open space I have there, to trace out the dart. So you want to trace out that dart and then know the length so that it matches with what you have on the other side. So I'll just use my chalk and just create like a line following the curve I have there, just following the sides of my paper. I'm just going to mark that down by that side, and after doing that, I'm going to just make notches at those points so that it matches what I have on the other side. Remember, we have two sides of this, one for the right and the other for the left. Okay, so to stitch this down, you want to ensure that you maintain the length of your dart. It doesn't go beyond the point where it's going to stop. So you can see me making a little mark notches around this area. So after doing that, go ahead and stitch the straight darts. You do for the front, make sure to get the length. You can see me taking the measurements here. It's important that your darts, they sit perfectly at the point where they're going to. You repeat the same process also for your back piece, and ensure to note the zip allowance you have for the back piece before going ahead to stitch your dart so that this sits perfectly. So over to the piece for the ruffles. I have my paper down. I've placed it on a fabric. So the fabric I have here on the table is 3 yards of fabric. I have 3 yards of fabric. I folded it by the length. Okay, remember 60 inches, that's the length of our fabrics. I folded it by the length. Now the paper I have here measures 26.5 inches. So I'm adding half of an inch, which is going to serve as my joining allowance. So it made this 27 inches. So what I want to measure here is 27 inches. I'm going to measure that to the full length. So I have my fabric folded into two. One is going to be for the right side and the other is going to be for the left side. I hope you understand what I'm saying. 3 yards of fabric, meaning I'm using 3 yards of fabric by 27 inches for this gathered piece. So I'm going to cut it so I have a matching length to the desired length I want. I'll cut it at the base and also cut it at the top so that it matches perfectly. So I've finished doing that for both of them. I'm just going to take off my pattern paper and then I will make a notch at the midpoint. So it's important that you notch the midpoint of this fabric. You're going to notch this, keep this aside, and then go on with the other things. So this is what the front looks like after I stitched down my dart, and I also went ahead to turn it over with my facing and then used a hemming gum to iron it down. Now for the back piece, this is what it looks like. I've stitched my dart. I've also turned it with a facing. Now I used stay on my facing, that's an interfacing, before going ahead to stitch it down. So you can see that the side pieces of both the front and the back, that they are matching. This is what you should have. Now you're going to place them right side to right side. You pin them down so that we can easily stitch this together. So make sure that they are matching perfectly before going ahead to do that. Okay, so we're going to be stitching the shoulders by half of an inch together, and then we're also going to stitch the sides by 1.5 inch, which is the seam allowance. So if you used 1 inch for your seam allowance, go ahead and stitch by 1 inch. Stitch the shoulders by half of an inch. Now for this dress, I want to add belts. I went ahead to cut out very long ropes. Okay, those are the pieces we cut out from the piece we're using for the ruffles. So I went ahead to just stitch them together to create a belt. So you want to measure your waist point. That's exactly where your belt should sit. That's your half length. And then you're going to tuck in the belt into that point and close it up while you're stitching your sides. So after doing that, this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. So this is the dress is coming in gradually. Okay. So the next thing we want to do now is to go over to the center back, and then we're going to stitch it down and then attach our zip. So to stitch the center back, you want to measure where you want your zipper to end, wherever you want your zipper to end. And then from that point, you're going to stitch 1 inch to the full length of your piece. And after doing that, you attach your zipper to the open part, which is the upper part of your piece. Okay. But make sure you maintain the 1 inch zipper allowance you marked while you were drafting your piece out, because that's going to help for your piece to sit very flat at the back. So after doing that, after stitching the zip and everything, the next thing I'm going to do is to attach my sleeves to this. So I just made a tulip sleeve, also known as a petal sleeve. I'm going to attach it to the opening of the armhole to stitch down the sleeve. So this is what it looks like. I've stitched the sleeve. I've also gone ahead to attach my zipper to this. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now is to mark for the ruffles. Now what we're going to do is to measure from the hem of this gown. We're going to measure upwards to where we want the gathers to start. Now if you look at the gown properly, some part of it is straight while we have the gathers at one end. So what we're going to do is to measure. So from the base, I'm going to come up by how the point where I want my gathers to start from, and I've just made that mark there. That's 21 inches. I'm going to notch it for both sides of the front and the back, and I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. I will come up from the hem and I will also measure. So ensure that the sides that are matching. Okay, the side curves you have on both sides that are matching. You can see I just trimmed off the excess I had on that side. So you're going to come up from the hem also by the same 21 inches. Whatever inches you're using, make sure that they are matching. So when you finish doing that, you make a notch at that point that affects both the front and the back piece. So this is the point. From this point here, from the first notch to the second notch at the other side, that is the positions where our gathers is going to sit, while the other point is going to be straight. So now I'm bringing in the piece for the gathers. I'm just taking off my pins so that we can properly work on this and create a very beautiful gown. So I'm going to use one piece of this to show you how to attach, and then I'll go ahead and repeat the same process for the other piece. So what I'm going to do next is to come up the same measurement I took on my piece. I will come up from this part, and then I will make a mark at the point where I want my gathers to start from. Okay, so 21 inches, I made a point there. I'm going to notch it. I'll go to the other end also, and then I would measure the same 21 inches and stop there and also make a notch. Okay, it means from where I'm notching now on my piece to the other part, that is where I'm going to gather to my main piece of gown. So we're going to now place this down. Remember, we made a notch at the center of this piece initially. Okay, so what you're going to do is to firstly align the notched part, that's the midpoint. You're going to align it together. You're going to place them right side to right side. Make sure you're aligning them. Okay, and then you're going to place from the hem to the first part of the notch. So the notch parts were made on the gown itself, and then the piece for the gathers, you're going to place them together and then you pin them. Okay, then you bring in the center piece, you do the same thing, you pin them also. Okay, so you can see me also placing them together, pinning them, and then placing the other side, the plain side together. I'm using my pins to hold them at various points. Now we're going to also pin the midpoint. We're going ahead to do that, and then we're going to just gather this part to it. That's the point we're going to gather. So now you're going to do that for one and repeat the process for the other one. So I finished doing that, and this is what the gown looks like. So the last thing to do for this dress is to just go ahead and hem the base by folding 1/2 inch twice. And that is all for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.